I'm speaking from Budapest, where we are a little bit late compared to other cities. So this gave us a lot of time or space, or in theory, this could have given us a lot of time and space to prepare for a lot of things you're already doing in your cities. And I think it's been very, very inspiring to see images from Italy, from Spain, from other countries, to see how people cope with something that we slowly realize that we will also have to cope with. So I think this is the strength of this discussion, to connect these local initiatives, or the local people getting active on the ground. So I'm going to speak about Budapest very quickly because I already used my time a bit. As I mentioned, we only entered a more serious phase about a week ago. So until like a week and a half ago, everything was very much as usual. People were a little bit worried, a little bit hearing news, but nobody really did anything. While in Italy, there was already almost a quarantine situation. And then every day the situation changed. We had different kind of information coming from the government, and we still don't have a prohibition of leaving the houses. So it's very much up to each individual to respect kind of a collective, let's say, precaution and not leave the houses. But there is a lot of social pressure, luckily, to not leave the houses. And there's been a lot of organization in individual buildings and neighborhoods to help people who should not actually leave the house, to help shopping for them, to help organize different kinds of services, to help with kids, all things like that. There's also a lot of attempts, like everywhere, for online teaching, which is of course a very complicated issue, because it's the first time that anything like this is tried on a large scale. But also it's a big issue of, for example, equipment. I just read on my neighborhood's blog that the school around the corner from me, it's practically less than half of the families of the kids in the school, they have actually computers. So some of them don't even have smartphones. So it's practically impossible to do online teaching for them. So there's a lot of issues on how to equip these families, how to find the necessary materials to actually provide the inclusion of all these people in the education, which is, of course, should be a citizen right and obligation for all children. Now, I also spoke in previously a little bit about the health system. So, of course, we're very much worried about the underfinanced health system. And we all try to avoid having any kind of contact with the health system. So this is probably same everywhere. But here we are, I think, for long years, we are really have very little trust in the health system. I think there's new people joining. So I would like to ask everyone to mute your mic and also turn off your video at the moment, and then we will give you the voice later on, if that's okay. So thanks a lot. Now, a little bit focusing on Budapest.
Just one quick thing, Levente,
yeah.
as it's all work in progress, so thank you for the flexibility. In the meantime, our back office support is informing us that the Facebook is actually working. So I would kindly invite our non-speakers and our guests that joined us on Skype to maybe move back to Facebook, simply because we're worried that otherwise Skype might crash. We appreciate your flexibility, and we promise that on the way, this technological experimentation will improve. So I kindly ask you, if you don't mind, to jump out of the Skype, those of you who are not invited to as speakers, and please keep following us though on Facebook. Please don't lose your patience with us. We're doing our best. Thank you so much. And Tiago and Bahanur, if you would like to put on back the video so that we're really as if we're in a discussion, please feel free. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, the back office, for supporting us. Thanks, Danny, for the moderation. Thank you, our audience, to be so flexible, so it's perfect. So going a little bit more into the details in Budapest, something that we see, and this is a very interesting phenomenon, is that a lot of companies, well, on the one hand, there's a lot of companies go bankrupt, which is a very sad thing, and so a lot of people are losing their livelihood in a matter of a few weeks or actually a few days. As you know, a lot of restaurants had to shut down immediately or very quickly. A lot of tourism disappeared completely, so the whole tourism sector is under a lot of stress. But what we see that a lot of these companies are trying to reinvent themselves in order to adapt to the situation. On the one hand, to save a little part of their revenues and to be able to keep the workers, but also to of course, to help the situation. So one example is Airbnb owners. Budapest has had a big touristification problem with a lot of Airbnbs, but now, of course, tourism is gone. So all the Airbnb owners have no revenue, and many of them, there's a movement to convince them, to invite them to share their apartments for quarantine purposes. Quarantine is a very, of course, a very important element of the response to this crisis, especially because a lot of people, for example, who live in student dorms, they had to leave their places and very often they don't have a place to live, or other people who were ordered to stay in quarantine, or they feel that they might be at risk and they would like to stay in quarantine. It's very difficult to organize it. So this is a very important support for mitigating the impact of the virus. Another dimension is that home delivery in food actually has a huge boom. This is something that we've been, in a way, talking about for years, and there's been a lot of, advocacy towards short chain food distribution. But suddenly now that we see that the big supermarket chains are actually incapable of delivering so much, so very often you cannot order anything now before April. So a lot of small players are jumping in, people or organizations that have the infrastructure. Maybe some of them are already doing this business for a while. Other we hear about, for example, event organization companies that use their infrastructure to start delivering food at home. So people reinvent their infrastructures and their capacities to help these new needs. There's also we see that taxi drivers are also losing their clients, of course, and there's a movement to have them on board to help health workers who are very much at risk because they're really exposed to the virus, and maybe it's better if they don't use the same public transportation as those people who have to go to work every day for some reasons. And then there's a lot of solidarity around helping people who just lost their jobs, as a lot of theaters, concert halls, cinemas, a lot of cultural institutions shut down, and many of the people who work there, they don't have savings. So it's very important to have them, give them temporary opportunities. So there's a lot of matchmaking process going on to connect these people with the temporary jobs, with different kinds of opportunities. So I wanted to talk about these as a package of different initiatives where we see that people reacted very fast. It wasn't really, I think, that people learned from other cities' example, but they just reacted very fast and they organized themselves, sometimes local communities, sometimes economic players. And, we hope that all this can be scaled up very quickly. But we are really happy, we're really curious to learn from other cities, because I think in Rome or Madrid, you're way ahead of us. So
thanks, Levente. So thanks to my colleague Levente from Budapest. And I think, so we're trying to somehow transition from the cities that most recently maybe have been experiencing the quarantine, and then slowly going to those of us like us in Rome or in Italy, actually, in general, because there's a lot of Italians also following us who have been unfortunately experiencing from longer. I would like to pass on the voice, the possibility, the podium. I don't know what we say to our friend Tiago Montasaraiva from Lisbon. One thing, I will mute my microphone, but I have also the very fun role of having to keep time, which being an Italian is really difficult. So I will do my best and ask also the others to, when we see that we have more or less 5 minutes, invent some collective dance or something that is a social invite to keep the time. Okay, thank you very much, Tiago.
Okay, thank you, Danny, and thank you, Cooperative City, for this great idea of trying to share a little bit what's happening in all of our cities and countries. Well, here in Lisbon, it's something that, the first case, it has like 2-3 weeks, the first infected case, and now we are over 1,000 people infected today. And with 6 people died. So the situation it's growing each day. Even though we know this number reflects people that were infected 15 days ago. So it has this delay of the figures had this delay of to understand what is working or not working in the measures that people are living. So just to synthesize the general idea was that last week there was a kind of a social pressure to stop, to stay at home. There was a huge movement.
Sorry, Tiago, you're muted.
Okay, and this is once again the technological surprises that we encounter. Tiago, we don't hear you. On the maps, creates a lot of suspense. No.
You were somehow muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Welcome back.
Okay. So just to following up the idea, 2 weeks ago people started to there's a kind of a social pressure so that people start to stay at home. So some businesses started to stop working. So people start to work at home, and then what happened, just to synthesize, is that on Monday the schools stopped, even though they were with a few kids during last week. So but then it started also to be followed up by the institutions, so that we from yesterday we are in a state of emergency, which it was not clear if it was a pressure from the President of the Republic, and the Prime Minister was not clear also if he wanted to. But the fact is that now we have a lot of restrictions going out to the street. We are like quarantine everyone, even though there are some basic stuff that are still open, and people are organized. The thing that Levente was saying that I think it's quite relevant is that, in fact, people in a certain way start to reorganize and to adapt informally and to react naturally to the situation, and in a cooperative way. It was the natural movement, I'd say. Well, some movements that are interesting here are from Saturday. There was these movements that it was an appeal to clap at the window or balconies for our National Health Service, which is happening all day. So at 10 o'clock in the evening, everyone is clapping at their balcony or window, which is very nice because you feel integrated, you feel part of this. We see people on the window. I think there's one more I'd like to, which is the role of the district, because the districts are saying, mostly is the city, all the districts in Lisbon, but there are lots of districts doing this. They are supplying people with more than 65 years old, saying them to stay at home, and they will take them food, and they will take them all the medicines that they need. So there is a kind of, this is and in fact the districts were very relegated in the last couple of years, because they were integrated, they were process of fusion, and there were lots of people mostly the neoliberal speech was saying that they were too big, they have to decrease, and now you understand the role of the districts. And so the districts, it's like I don't know the direct translation from to English, but you have parish. So each city has different institutions, but districts are institutions that are elected in the mayor's elections, for example. So they are playing a very important role, a local role, and they are helping a lot. Mostly people with more than 65 years old. So then naturally I would enhance for example, one blog that is well known here, which is Manifesto 74. They are organizing by their own a system of, throughout all the country, a system of people that say that we want to help and people that needs help. So there is a kind of an organization that they do an Excel so that people from different cities can join and can help each one. Then, so I would enhance these three as the main core of it, but I would also try to say that it's quite relevant in this period that, here we had a huge arguments against and pro our national health system. There was a huge discussion. In fact, as in Budapest, I imagine there were lots of cuts. So people were very and there was a lot of arguments taken in pro. But in the end, you see that everyone now it's supportive to it. So it changed a lot, and mostly you can understand from the what's happening that it doesn't matter that you have a lot of money that you will get rid of these things. So, for example, here in Portugal, the second person that died here was the president of one bank, the Banco Santander. So the thing is that even him, in fact, the rumors, it's not sad, but he went first to the private hospital, but then they just sent him away, and he went back to the national healthcare system. So, which is relevant for people to understand how important it is. So that's what I would like to enhance here.
Thank you, Tiago. That's very interesting to hear also what is happening in Lisbon. Also to see also in practice of the day of every life, because we hear from the news what is happening, but then to hear also what is the lively experience, because we heard your kids laughing and playing in the back, because this is a big issue at the moment. Yes. For everybody. I'm speaking from my garden because it's the biggest space of my flat. So there is an issue also for sharing about this. And also what I wanted to say is that we're doing everything we can to also keep a bit of an eye on what's being commented on the Facebook chat. So if anybody has some questions to the audience, please feel free to make them here. And that way then also people, just to let you know, we're running late in the best traditions. So we will have approximately 5 minutes for each speaker, and then we will be having a session of question and answers and open discussion. So please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat, and we're experimenting the interaction mode as best as we can. And this is a nice transition that I would like to ask my colleague Bahanur Nasia in Vienna to tell us about what is happening in Vienna.
I have the feeling we learned a bit from the case or how things evolved in Italy, and we were, I think, one of the countries which had dramatic or drastic implementations. And I think one of the key moments was when our Prime Minister announced there will be restrictions or suggestions to not use public space so much. I think a couple of hours later, for me, it's emotional. I don't know, maybe they announced much days apart, but for me, a few hours later, I saw the sharing of the city of Vienna, how they transformed the fairground to a kind of a hospital with 800 beds. I was like, oh my God. And I think the personal level, it sometimes gets scary because people are sometimes very rough to each other if they see people being in parks, which is not allowed anymore, but when they see people hanging out with other people, meeting up and so on. On the one hand, because they are scared, we live in a 2 million people city, and with total restriction lockdown, it would be a mess. And I can say, as the mother of two, it's really difficult to be in an apartment where you don't have a balcony, a garden, or whatever, 24 hours together, and you try to do some work, or you end up entertaining the kids or try to do something useful with them, but we are not used to that, being closed in a house. And I think it's on the personal level pretty difficult to handle, to have the space to have a daily routine even though you don't go out of the house. And I therefore understand that some people are scared, but I also see I am now in so many forums because I want to support people in understanding a lot of expert forums who don't understand the announcements in German and so on. I see that people are scared and want to be sure that they don't have the virus, for instance, and have no understanding that all the phones, hotlines are busy and they have to wait for hours. So and no one is saying how to behave, how to do our daily things and so on. And on the other hand, we have city government, the government per se, who is doing a lot of things like all those precautions measures to have the distance, to slow down the spread of the virus. But on the personal level, then I see also people who are mothers or pregnant. They should go for EKG, to the hospitals, or they know they can't bring their husbands or partners to the delivery to give the birth. So there, on this personal level, it's incredible what's how it's limiting us. And it's, on the other hand, seeing then other women trying to help or supporting free of charge midwife services and so on. It's amazing to see this. On the one hand, the governmental measures, but seeing the single people really reaching out one by one, that's beautiful to see. You wanted to say something, Dani?
No, it's just if you like, I can think up of some more funny moves. Maybe we'll over the next series of Cooperative City in Quarantine, we will think up of something a bit more fun to keep the time. Sorry for the not very friendly role of having to more or less push people to an end. But that was very, very useful to understand Vienna, but also what is happening also in homes, because I think there's also really we're rethinking or having to rethink about our welfare system related to this. Definitely health, but not only. So thank you for that. And I see from the chat that there's been a lot of exchange amongst our audience because Patrizia Di Monte mentioned about Frena la Curva, which is a very good transition to our next speaker, Mauro Gil Fournier in Madrid, who will be telling us exactly about this. So Mauro, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Well, first of all, I hope everyone is going okay, because we are talking about something that could be scary. I mean, it's an illness, and yeah, Spain is 20,000 infected people, and yeah, we are going to see not good news. So, I mean, that's the problem. Hospitals and places. In one hand, I have like 4 things I can share with you that I'm thinking these days. One question maybe Levente was talking about. I mean, where is Europe now? Something that Europe, as Levente says, is cut into nations or states, because something is, each country has to make whatever their own decisions. And I think that's not good for our future together. In our case, for example, also in my personal experience, I was in Madrid 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I went to Mexico, and then things were getting so bad in Madrid, so I returned earlier, and I can see how things were going very fast in Madrid, and in other countries, like something that's away, like our Spain situation with Italy. That, I mean, we weren't very, very close of what was going to happen here. So this movement between countries is something that, I mean, we still can do. So Frena la Curva, it's an initiative, a civic initiative from Spain, but I will talk about the initiative to map civic practice in each territory and in each side to help and to cover cares and a lot of things from these days, but also something we spread to Latin America to say other countries, take it serious, because the governments are not going to say at first that it's too serious, and this is like that. So now we have this platform moving information, technology, and people through 14 countries with Spain, and now we are beginning to some Europe countries to understand the importance of what is this. Maybe we can talk later, because I don't know many things about the east of Europe, as the virus comes from China to the east and goes through, seems to Italy, and then goes through Europe and Western Europe, and then to America and Latin America. What's happening with East Europe? That I don't have information of that, but we need to take this responsibility or take these decisions. Hola, León. Son mucha gente aquí de trabajo. Sí. ¿Habla inglés? Sí. León is saying hello to you. Venga, say hello. Venga, okay. Okay, perfect. So, this Europe stuff. So Frena la Curva is an initiative that is very, very located, and it's very, very situated in this context. So it's something that is helping a lot of people. That's how it's growing a lot, and begins from people from Spain, from Aragon, from Barcelona, from Madrid, and recover some networks that we built in the 15M, in Madrid, and in other times. So it's something that is joining us now. As third question could be this thing of a home. We are all included in quarantine at home, but what is a home today, and for whom is the home? I mean, we have women that suffer violence, so they have to stay at home all the time. We have fathers and mothers alone with kids. They have to stay and take care of the things. It's a lot to say. And we just begin with that, because it's like, would be sure maybe 2 months, I mean, 50. So we have to also I think, to slow down, to take some things that the places where we do it first. ¿Cómo? Pues di hello, venga. They want to say hello to you. Okay, and they go to play. Venga, a jugar. And this is to take this time, I mean, to care things, but also to think what we need to change things radically. We were talking before of the virus, many of us, in different lectures, in different contexts, in different universities, in our place, to change things, but really we need to change these things. So now we need to prepare some kind of tools more than the emergency, to go ahead and think and rethink how we're going to build our projects, our cares, our things in the situation. So, I mean, maybe this is more normal than the normality we had before. So I want to finish with something I heard yesterday in a film that was Le Jeté by Chris Maker, and puts us in this situation in the years in the 60s. I hope my translation is kind of good, but has to be how we begin a new place to do the things in our earth, in our countries, in our territories, locally, in our homes, to understand different possibilities and different futures. Chris Maker in La Jetée talks about that he found a man without passion who calmly told that the human race was doomed in closed space, that the only possibility linked to survive was going through the time. So they make an experiment to send some kind of emissaries over time to the future and to the past, to appeal and to help and to aid the present. But the human spirit failed. Walking in another time means being born again as an adult. And I think that's what we need today. This is a personal thing. The impact of going out and being an adult was very strong for them. After projecting bodies without life or without consciousness in different areas of time, this concentrated in very strong mental images capable of imagining and dreaming other times. Perhaps were times able to inhabit them. And that's helped me yesterday, what I am thinking here at home with my kids, that the kids are perfect agents to imagine new possibilities and new future, is how can we imagine things? How are we going to imagine Europe again with this crisis that stops and every nation is cutting them? How are we going to imagine our networks, our technologies, when we can grow so fast as in French Curva, only 1 week doing this amazing work? What is a home today and for whom? I mean, now we have this over the table, so put it again in the rest of the part. What it's about our connection, and I finish in these things of today. We have also kind of, I can see, after 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks of confinement, our enemy also, no? That is the telephone in one hand, and we can talk and we can communicate, but we receive all this information that we cannot afford that information. So we have a continuity between the house, the telephone, and the brain and our mental situation that, I mean, we need to be strong to keep calm and to stay, keep calm to imagine new futures and new presents after that. So that's my vision and my ideas of what I was doing here. And at the same time, going through Frena la Curva, and I will say that we open a Telegram group for English people and English version. After that chat, we can talk with that. We spread also a lot of initiatives and a lot of ideas that we are as civic people changing between Latin America, and I hope now Europe. That's my...
For those of you interested in knowing more about Frena la Curva, there is the link in the chat of this Facebook Live, and I think then we can also share later maybe more specific information with Mauro. Yeah?
Okay.
Thanks, Mauro. That's quite something, and I think we're seeing more or less a transition from slowly those who have just literally started the first measures of quarantine, and then I bring you to Rome, to my garden. I like to have, I don't know, you will experience, so talking from a condition of full lockdown since Roman friends, Italian friends, correct me, approximately 10 days, you will see that you have a lot of Skypes, because you change completely the way of interaction with the world outside. And so my little sharing with you is that I share my garden, seeing as many of you might not have an open space. It's quite interesting. You all have heard what has been happening in Italy, so I won't be that it's been on all the newspapers, because being the front runners in this, unfortunately, we had to experience stuff the first. The condition we're in now is that we have approximately more than 35,000 people contagious, and it's very difficult to also assess how many people are really contagious, because you cannot do, I think in English it's the tampons, to check whether somebody is positive to coronavirus to everybody. So it is also difficult to say really how many people are affected. There's been a lot of deaths. And so we have to be objective about, we know from the news just how difficult and scary it will be ahead, definitely from a human perspective, but there is also a very big discussion about the economic and political impact that is ahead of us. This said, the whole point of this is to try and bring also on the positive side. And what I can say from Rome, and I would also see that if there are some colleagues maybe from cities like Milan or Turin, if they also want to share a bit of their perspective, because having been the first cities that have been locked in full lockdown, what we see is that we don't have, as in the case of Frena la Curva in Rome, as far as I'm aware of, and please let me know if there is something that I might have missed out on, a platform that is somehow centralizing to some extent the bottom-up information. But we see that there are a series of initiatives that are trying to create networks in the different fields. So just to give you a bit of an example, but this was also what was mentioned also by the friends and colleagues here before in the other cities. Food, there is systems of distribution, for example, from the RES, the network of social and solidarity economy, to bring food that is with home delivery from local producers, because there is a huge impact on agricultural production. Farmers are thinking of not planting seeds in this season now because there are no workers, because due to the immigration law and due to the fear of the coronavirus, people are not collecting the food now, and people are planning on maybe not seeding this year. And this is going to have a huge impact on our foods distribution and production system, obviously. But we see on some of you might know that we're very active on the topic of local food markets. I should have had a little promo now to have the book with me. I didn't think of bringing it to the garden. So on next episode, I will do this. But there is also a lot of issues related to work. It was saying there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs, but there are also a lot of people that are being exploited under these current conditions. So there are political movements like PAP that are working on having what is called the red phone. So you can call and have a legal advice and support to make sure that your workers' rights are being supported. There is initiatives in terms of childcare. We had the fantastic view of Mauro's kids joining us in the discussion, which is lovely. Because, for example, there's a lot of readings, online readings of books for children, so that there is, the possibility of also entertaining and having, to some extent, a bit of childcare. We see that there is a lot of experiments from the cultural sector. We see that there are, aside of the singing from the balconies, which I think in a few minutes might happen that we get it from my neighbors, but my neighborhood is not very active on this, I'm sorry. But there is also, for example, live streaming of theatrical plays, of concerts, because a lot of artists are producing anyway and sharing it in digital. There are experiments, obviously, with the digital platforms. There's a platform promoted by the government, actually, that is called Digital Solidarity, that is bringing all the biggest companies that have services in the digital to provide their services. It can be newspapers, it can be any type of digital service that is maybe giving their services for free for a couple of months or so. There is experiments in terms of economy, for example, and this is a very, very big issue because we're giving a lot of attention on all the social dimension, and obviously there's a lot of voluntary work going on this because the situation is an emergency, but there is a big issue concerning the fact that we are going to have a very, very big challenge economically also for all the social sector. And there's a lot of foundations that have been, for example, impacting on collecting, for example, solidarity funds. I think of Cariplo now, one of the biggest, but there's a lot of initiatives in this sense to actually be able to have capital that will be supporting the social initiatives that are so necessary for us. So we see there's a wide range of things that are happening. What is ahead? what is ahead? We have to keep hope and keep away bad luck. So with this, I will share with you something that is going to sound probably a bit. It makes sense only for those of you that are familiar with the South, maybe. But I have a necklace with a horn. It's supposed to bring good luck. So I think this is a little starting point of something that we can do. We have to necessarily, absolutely keep our spirits up, because that's a very, very basic thing that we have to do. And to do this, everybody has to be able to do whatever helps individually, but especially support collectively what they're able to do for themselves, but if also for the collectivity, because we're going to have probably lockdown most likely for about a month. So some friends are joking about having evasions or something like that. It really sounds to many as if we're in prison, and it's hard times. So any of you who ever want to have a bit of a feeling of the garden, just let me know. I can send you pictures from my garden. You're very, very welcome. I will do what I can in my little. But especially what we will do with Cooperative City is try to share as much as possible also inspiration of what is happening in the different contexts, so that people feel that they're not alone, that there are other people that are doing something similar. So what we can do is even more than what we try to do anyway, always. This is our mission with Eutropian, to share really experiences from around Europe. This is what we will be trying to do in the next days, what is ahead of us. I will soon run out of battery, so I will also ask my colleagues Levente and Bahanur to help with the moderation. But in the meantime, I would also ask a quick reaction from the speakers is, what do you think is the first thing that we should all try to concentrate on, where we can really try to share? I think at the moment there is a big issue that we can learn from is on food distribution, but I would like to have a quick round also with the others about what you feel. And meanwhile, also invite everybody from the audience to be able to pose questions, writing in the common chat. And I would ask our speakers to also take a look at the chat of the Facebook live stream, so that you can also see the questions from our audience and try to respond. Work in progress, we're experimenting and we try, and I am listening to you, but I will go and look for my charger. See you in a minute.
I think for me it's important, as Levente pointed out, we can reach a lot of people through... through internet, but it would be good to reach out in the neighborhood. May it be with a letter, or may it be with being visible from a distance and so on, because that's the challenge with the given spread of the disease. And I would like to give the word to Levente maybe.
Yeah, what we see is that, I mean, a lot of elements of the capitalist system as we know it, they're collapsing right now. I mean, we talked about tourism. Tourism as it was, it will never come back, most probably. No, so a lot of things might not, because simply a lot of companies are collapsing, and there will be a big economic crisis probably. So I think this is a moment for all of us to rethink a little bit some of the fundamentals of how we travel, how we consume, how we use our real estate, how does public transportation work, health services, Tiago mentioned. So I think it's a very scary, but also a very in a way stimulating moment to rethink a lot of the ways we use these services, or we use our cities and countries. And I think we have to recognize the initiatives that are in a way forward-looking, that take the moment, capture the moment, and do something for better, more solidarity. Because we see, of course, a lot of other tendencies. There's a lot of people use the language of the war. A lot of people, try to turn all this into competition. Buy up the vaccines from different countries now. So I think we have to keep an eye on the initiatives that are working towards solidarity, and we have to find ways to help them, grow, connect to each other, and incubate them, and then scale up. and be able to survive the next phase as well. No, I think this is a big challenge, and for this we need to recognize them when they're happening. I mean, we've been talking about digitalization for a decade now. The whole EU is one of the big pillars of EU policies now, and digitalization now is happening from one day to the other. It's not working well, but a lot of people are forced to move into digital things, people who never did that. And of course, a lot of people are excluded from this. So this is really the moment to care for those people who don't have those kinds of access, no?
Yeah.
So I guess, that is better.
I think this is This is a very relevant issue. We have a project that is about supporting the reduction of school abandonment in social housing priority neighborhoods in Rome. And one of the big issues that schools are facing now is the fact that kids don't necessarily have access to digital and to computers to be able to not only do the e-schooling, but anything that is related to also the support of the services. So there are some huge issues about that we realize that how unprepared we are. I agree absolutely. I would do one thing. So we're open to questions from the audience. I see it's very nice. We're very happy. Some had to leave. It was lovely to have you with us. And some have tagged other friends to say join in. We're heading towards the end, even though we started a bit late. I would say that maybe in about 10 minutes we would more or less close, if you all agree. But I would ask a little bit of a round of impressions or of keywords or of quick issues that you think have missed out from what was said already from the colleagues. I don't know, Mauro, Tiago, would you like to share some impressions about something that you really think is the priority of what we have to focus ahead of us?
Okay, can I step in?
I think she wanted to talk.
Yeah, Mauro. Okay.
No, from Vienna, I think he wanted.
Go, Tiago.
Okay. We are with a little bit of delay. So, well, I think we all agree with the idea that in this time of moment, that, as I think Levente started to refer, we started by saying that that from one day to another we didn't have anymore an European Union. So from one day to another we just stood back, thinking that it was a Chinese problem. For example, the first reaction here in Portugal, we had like the Chinese restaurants were all empty from one day to another. But in the end. So there was not an answer back. We didn't feel that there is an answer. We now hearing about these euro bonds that at least me, I don't understand really well what it is, but it is the mutualization of the debt. But okay, but it will take a lot of time, and it will as a measure. And on the other hand, we see like simple local acts, being an answer, which I think it's an interesting thing. One thing that I would like also to enhance is the thing that Bahanur and also Mauro talked about. It's the importance, and as an architect, I'm feeling that a lot. This idea of quarantine. If you don't have a home that is more or less prepared to live with each other, so for example, small houses, it will be chaotic. So when more and more the tendency of the big European or big Occidental cities is to have smaller houses and divided houses, now you see a really huge problem. So people just go to quarantine in small houses with kids, and everyone getting mad with each other. So that's the thing that we have to rethink on also our practice as an architect when we do some projects. So the idea of, to step back to the former idea, the idea that we have of this macro structure that will produce laws that will change our lives. But on the other hand, we have these local things that are changing much more and interacting much more with our lives. So the thing that I would like to enhance, and I think that's the thing we have to step back again, and how we can react in a certain way to this crisis. Of course, for example, just to add some comment that I would also like to say about what Levente was saying, that now we have totally the proof that tourism, cities being developed just around tourism, it just creates an unsustainable city. So and you see, and for example, here in Lisbon, we will also see, Lisbon and Porto, we will also see it in the next months, that all the things that we had, also the Prime Minister or the Mayor saying that we have to thank to tourism that make us our economical growth, etc., etc., etc. Now you see that you have hotels totally empty, and so we have a kind of a ghost city in the areas that were dominated by tourism. So the thing is that we have here, in a certain way, a local base and a local structures and networks from one day to another being implemented, that I think we should understand how can we upgrade it, and how can how can they produce law, they can produce new ways of living and approaching the neighborhoods.
Thanks, Tiago. No, sorry for...
I clear?
I think it was very, very clear. The audio was fine. So no, absolutely. And we hear of a lot of people.
Do you hear me?
We hear you fine. And we hear of a lot of people who are losing also their jobs in the tourism sector very, very quick. It's a very, very volatile sector. So this is definitely an issue. I would like to share also some reactions from the audience with you. So there was a question about good news. We see the fish in Venice canals and we see clearer skies. Can we also share some positive other new things that we would like to share? There is also about some questions about how is the situation in Europe taking place, and how can we be able to support them a little bit more? And also, how can we help in these times small businesses that are struggling very, very much? We're very happy to also have some friends that are joining us in this discussion that are not from European cities. So we'll definitely also get back to you. I'm not sure right now, but soon, to be able also to know what's happening outside of Europe. I would ask a quick feedback also from Bahanur. Yes, tell us.
I would like to give a little comment. I totally agree. It's in terms of fish, good air, pollution, and so on. This is it's an experiment where we can test how we can reverse climate change and pollution and so on. I think I also see the positive. I also see how we can reduce working hours, and use of space, because in the end we are using a lot of we don't use most of the districts which are for business or tourism and so on. And the third thing is local business, helping company by company is very good, but we have to make sure that we don't repeat what we did in 2008, that we help not the banks maybe, but insurance companies and so on. We have to make sure that we learn from the last crisis, and that this time we don't save the banks, insurance, big companies, but give the money to the people so they can recreate their spaces, their cities, their countries. And I have to go.
Is there, Mauro, would you like to share some feedback?
You have to, Mauro, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I mean, nothing we don't we say already, but this is a test, so I think we have to listen very carefully and to listen very. I mean, we need a tool for listen in this noisy also place to know what we see in our cities. No, if tourists is falling down, okay, we cannot sustain the city with tourists. If the real estate is falling down, how we live together in the city, in our home, how are we going to pay our home in 3 months? I mean, what is the relation between things in our park? If what is falling apart, it's another kind of things, not as culture, for example, because we have the culture online. So this is the basis of our cities. I was telling 2 weeks ago in a lecture that we create the cities to support us, and now cities are dying us also with the virus. No? So how we recover other things, or we think other ways. So the state is something that is supporting us. So maybe it's a good thing. Ecology is taking some air, so that's a good thing. Life itself is taking things in the city now because we feel more alive than ever maybe in our homes. And we are worried for the important things and not for the others. So that's a good thing. I mean, to take the very not essential but important things to think. So I will ask to Cooperative City and Eutropian and our European network to think only today like a tool for listen these days to can know more things. I mean, we have time, so we don't have to make past decisions. So we have 1 week to have a good and very specific listen in our cities, because different is Budapest from Lisbon from Madrid. Also, we have this listening. We can think also new tools for this. I mean, radical imagination of going ahead as architects, as civics, whatever. I mean, at citizens and with ourselves also. And then, I mean, I want to go these 3 months out with new possibilities of life.
Yeah.
Thinking in reality of that, not something like a project. I mean, really a possibility of life. Because if not, we don't have a lot of options we are seeing right now. So best luck to everyone, to our relatives also, and hope to see you soon also in this.
Thank you.
So,
No, listening, I think, is a very, very good point. And I think this is what we're trying to do. And I also want to tell to our audience that there are also a lot of networks that are working in the same direction. So let's try and, as much as possible, cross-exchange and cross-post these opportunities of exchange. So I see Charlotte, for example, has been reading about the work that is being done by the Placemaking Europe network. So definitely there's a lot of platforms that are working in the same direction. So let's share. I also apologize for those of you who have commented that actually their questions were not properly reported to the discussion. So I asked collectively, one of the things is try to write very short and clear questions, because it's very difficult to read in detail the comments from the audience. But we will improve.
You can put it in your Facebook, Danny, like have all the questions and then some like share, because questions are always good points to think.
But the discussion will also continue after this live chat. So there will be feedback and questions and answers also from the panelists also in the coming days. So it's not that we're trying to finish everything now. So we're heading towards the end. I would like to invite Stefano Batti to join us.
Hello.
Hello. Floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, first of all. I'm here to read for you the waiver by Bertolt Brecht. You tell us it looks bad for our cause. The darkness gets deeper, the powers get less. Now, after we worked for so many years, we are in a more difficult position than at the start. But the enemy stands there, stronger than ever before. His powers appear to have grown. He has taken on an aspect of invincibility. We, however, have made mistakes. There is no denying it. Our numbers are dwindling. Our slogans are in disarray. The enemies has twisted part of our words beyond recognition. What is now false of what we said Some or all? Whom do we still count on? Are we just left over, thrown out of the living stream? Shall we remain behind, understanding no one and understood by none? Have we got to be lucky? This, you ask. Expect no other answer than your own. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for this space. It was really interesting, this sharing. And I would like to say something else. Hamlet in Shakespeare used to say, readiness is all. So I think it's really important to continue sharing ideas, not to stop. And let's share. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. And I would like now at this point to I see Levente is slowly in the dark because we really see the difference of the geographical region. So the sun is setting now in Budapest. And I think this is a good moment for all of us then at this point to say goodbye. I would like to say thank you to our speakers. Thank you so much. We got a lot of comments on how to improve the format. We would like to say thank you to the audience. Thank you for interacting, for being patient with us with all the technological challenges. Thank you to the Eutropian team for all the back office work and the support and everything. This has been really, really a fantastic community work also for our internal team. And I would like to say that we will be seeing you on these same channels with some improvements in technology and format next Friday. So keep posted and keep sharing, and also continue sending ideas, suggestions for improvement, and ideas of some things that are happening in your city. It's all an issue about really trying to get together. Thank you so much.